This week has started off pretty cold, damp, and dreary. Although we could definitely use the rain, it's kept everybody cooped up in the shop. Vicky's been busy shipping orders out for Father's Day gifts, and Billy's been busy in the shop working on the cold side on my Nova and getting the boost controller hooked up. The car sounds really, really good, and my new ATM blow-through carburetor has been spot on so far. So that's what's been going on at my shop. Meanwhile, up at the farm, Jeremy's been working on his fire truck trying to get it back up and running.
Houston, I got a problem. So I've been fighting the transmission. The mount collapsed and it slid back. I got the engine mounter in and all that. But I'm having problems with it. So I gotta run to Chumpy's and get a transmission mount.
Of course, by the time Jeremy got down there, it was quitting time.
Service, where's the lights?
I feel pretty confident that Mark's gonna start locking the front door right at 6 o'clock from now on.
Service, where's the lights? What, you didn't pay your electric bill?
What time is it? It's after 6.
There is no such thing as closing down.
Yes, there is.
No, there's not.
On Chumpy's time there is.
No, we won't hear about no chump time. You need the fire department up and going.
I know, it's about time. This project's taking a long time, seems like.
It's because it's being done right.
No zip ties and self-tappers?
No self-tappers, not one,
Nothing?
No.
Wow.
But the transmission mount broke, and I was fighting it and didn't realize the transmission mount broke, and I couldn't figure out why the damn transmission's sitting 3 inches back from where it needs to be, and then finally looked, and then the mount totally ripped apart. You probably sold me one. It's probably one of yours.
So did you try to put longer torque converter bolts in it?
No.
Oh.
I realized there was a problem and figured I better fix it.
Did you put some washers in there and shim it up?
No.
Once Jeremy got his new transmission mount in, the bell housing and torque converter hooked up, it didn't take long for the fire truck and the fire department to be back up and running. It's been out of service ever since its fateful day at Nashville Motor Speedway during the Good Guys event, when Jeremy literally was peer pressured into floorboarding the truck to keep up with traffic. He managed to get the truck back home as close as the Ohio River, but the truck has been parked and sidelined ever since. I told Jeremy that since his trip to Nashville was technically a business trip, that I would take care of replacing the engine and a few parts underneath the hood to make the truck reliable. Somehow that turned into replacing everything under the hood except the alternator. Anyway, I hopped in the truck and he took me up the road to show me how nice the little truck runs and drives now that it's all back together. The little V6 is smooth and quiet as a mouse, carrying really good oil pressure without having to have gear oil in the crankcase, which by the way was the truck's last known blood type when it left Good Guys in Nashville, Tennessee. I would have preferred to put a small block Chevy in the truck, but if Jeremy's happy, I'm happy. Congratulations. You finished the world's most expensive 4.3 to 4.3 swap. When we got back from the test drive, it was time to get lunch, but I quickly decided it was probably best that I go someplace else to eat today. So Junior and I hopped in the 64 and we headed down to Crossroads in Jacktown to get something to eat. And while we were on our way down there, Billy got a notification that a package had arrived at the FedEx Center down in Zanesville that he needed to go pick up. Since we were already over a third of the way there, I decided just to go down with him and help him haul home whatever this package is. The weather was really nice today and it didn't take much to talk me into taking a drive down to Zanesville in the 64. Billy seemed to be preoccupied texting somebody on the way there, so I never had an opportunity to ask him what it was we were picking up. And then after we got it loaded, his phone rang nonstop all the way home. So I never got an opportunity to ask what in the world this thing is in the back of the truck. Whatever it is, they loaded it with a forklift, and I can definitely tell it's going to take something to unload it once we get it home. So I fired up the skid loader, got the forks out, unloaded it out of the back of the 64, and shoved it in the shop, figuring sooner or later I'll get to the bottom of what this is.
What's in the box?
Anytime you see this look on Billy's face, you know he's up to no good. I was just about to get my answer as to what's in this box when yet another interruption presented itself. Vicky's trying to back up to the door to load up merch to haul to the post office. Personally, I think she's got some kind of idea as to what this is, and she just wanted to be out there to see my reaction. And clearly Kenny knows something's up because he's out there filming this whole situation with his cell phone.
Your new wine mixture?
Nice box.
Looks like a giant doghouse. Perfect for him.
Perfect for you. What's
So-
in there?
I told you it's the Cali and wine mixer.
What the hell is that?
Oh boy.
That is going to strike fear in all of our opponents.
What the hell is that?
388 cubic inch Mike Lau LS.
What's that going on?
Go find out.
Rob, you're blinding everybody.
Oh, sorry.
Trying to look at this engine, this thing's blinding me.
There we go to flash mode. Got a secret weapon.
We'll put that in the Falcon.
Maybe. Maybe not.
There is an S10 sitting out back.
Kenny Power.
It'll be a cold day in hell or I'll be 6 feet under before that S10 gets an LS engine. Anyway, we turn our focus onto the suspension adjustments we need to make to Billy's Nova to get it ready for this weekend's race at MILAN, Michigan, where we'll be running the track backwards on blacktop.
All right, so we went from on the upper, we were in this hole. We went down one hole. So that's going to bring our instant center a little bit closer to the rear end, and it should help plant the tire faster and make it better on shittier surfaces, asphalt mainly. At least in my theory. I know there's a lot of different theories out there, but what's worked on the Falcon, I'm going to try to apply to this thing and see if it works.
So while Billy's working on the Nova suspension in the shop, Kenny Powers is busy working on getting the trailer cleaned up after that weekend at War in the Woods. He also managed to get the Nova and the Falcon straightened up a little better after the Super Citrus fiasco last week. While Billy's finishing up working on his suspension, me and Jeremy pulled out the 400 small block we're getting ready to put down in Mom and Dad's 55 and started checking oil pump pickup to pan clearance. Then Jeremy started installing the oil pan studs in the block about the time Billy was ready to back his car out of the shop to see how it looks after he made the suspension changes. He not only made 4-link adjustments, but he also raised the ride height of the car, front and rear. After Billy pulled his Nova outside, he wanted to bring my car in so he and Rob could work on hooking up the boost controller and wiring up the MAC valves so we can start putting some dome pressure on the wastegates to turn up the boost. By this time, Jeremy was unboxing the new Isky roller camshaft for the 55's 400 small block, and now that we know that the oil pan fits, it's time for Kenny to work his magic with the spray can. While Kenny's out there in the driveway, I went into the shop to give Jeremy some helpful tips and tricks on how to install a camshaft. Put the timing gear on, bolt it on, and use the timing gear to slide the cam in, and then you don't look like you've murdered a chicken. All in all, we're making pretty good progress today on the 55's engine. And by this time, Billy and Rob are just about done wiring up the boost controller in my Nova. They set the car on the scales and then they decided to take it around the block for a test drive. Currently, the CO2 bottle's just riding shotgun on the floor pan until we get it mounted properly. But it'll be fine for just taking it around the block and test driving the car to see how it runs with a little bit added boost. Billy took the Nova for a quick spin around the block, and I was pretty happy to see it pull back in the driveway under its own power.
Made 8 pounds, and then I added 7 or 8 pounds of dome pressure, and it white smoked the tires in high gear. I was rolling at 40 miles an hour, right, like lugging it.
Yeah.
In high gear, and I hit the button and floored it, and it was like and white smoked the tires
No.
in high gear.
And it lives.
Yeah, I let out very quickly.
So that brings us to Thursday, and Jeremy and I are hot and heavy back on the 55 Chevy project. Well, do you have a list of parts compiled that we need?
Yeah, I think so.
I've got a few things on a list too. I need rocker arms, we've got push rods, carburetor studs, there's just a bunch of little stuff. Yeah, we need a finishing kit for the block. Let's run into Jigs and go get set rocker arms, and I got a whole list of stuff on my phone, but let's go pick this stuff up so we can get back here and start putting this thing together. So Jeremy and I jump in the 64 and we head west towards downtown Columbus to go pick up some parts for the 55. Thankfully, old Uncle Terry's in there working today, and he got us hooked up with not only all the small parts we needed, but a few big ticket items that I had him order in for me a few weeks ago. And while we were there, we went ahead and picked up some stuff that Billy had ordered in as well. It's a good thing we didn't bring the fire truck.
Well, it's a really good thing you didn't bring the fire truck. I don't know if the 64 is going to be big enough.
We picked up a brand new vintage air kit and a cold case radiator for the 55, a new set of slicks for the Falcon, and some new bucket seats for my car that Billy ordered in a few days ago. Terry helped us load everything in the back of the 64, and then we headed back to the shop, where the first thing we wanted to get accomplished was getting these new slicks put on the wheels for the Falcon. Although they're double bead locked, it's actually more difficult just to remove the wheels and tires from the car than it is to actually switch the tires onto the rims. But just like with anything else, the more times you do it, the better you get at it. By the time we got back, Kenny already had the rear wheels and tires off the car, the tires off the wheels, and had started polishing the wheels with a little bit of Jack's Wax metal polish. Once we had the new slicks mounted on the wheels, Tommy put the wheels and tires back underneath the Falcon and started hooking up the shocks and the anti-roll bar. That's about the time we found a crack in the transmission oil pan. Luckily, Billy's able to TIG weld this pan back together himself, but we're still going to need a case of transmission fluid, which is going to require another trip down to Buckeye Lake. So this time I hopped in Billy's little Cobra Mustang and made my way down to see Mark at A1, while Billy heads to his shop to weld up the oil pan. While Billy was busy welding up that transmission oil pan down at his shop, I was busy making my way back from Mark's, and Tommy was busy finishing up some maintenance on the Falcon. A fresh oil change, oil filter, and all new spark plugs. With a new set of slicks and the transmission pan fixed, the Falcon should be pretty much ready to go. All we've really got left to do is finish getting the race car trailer cleaned up, packed up, and maybe make a little street test hit on Billy's Nova to test the suspension changes. Billy let the car warm up out in the driveway for a few minutes, then topped off the fuel cell and drove it down to our test spot not far from our house. The main thing we're interested here is the initial hit of the tire. You can see the tires planted firmly into the asphalt as the front suspension rises. Compare that to what the car did the last time we had it out for a test session at Magnolia before we took it to War in the Woods. As you can see here, the car sits a lot lower and doesn't plant the tire nearly as hard. This suspension arrangement was set up for 29.5s that require a little bit of wheel speed, as opposed to the 28s that generally don't like any wheel speed at all. Obviously, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how the car handles this weekend at MILAN, racing the track backwards on asphalt. So that brings us to Friday afternoon, one day closer to race day. I got word last night that we're not only just taking the Nova and the Falcon, but we're also going to take Allison's Dart as well. So we've got my dually hooked up to the tandem trailer and Billy's truck hooked up to the 50-foot gooseneck, and we plan on loading Billy's car and my trailer as soon as he gets done making a few minor adjustments to the 4-link suspension and the anti-roll bar underneath the back of his Nova. We also want to do an oil change on the Nova and cut the filter apart. But after that, there's really only one last thing to do, and it's my least favorite part of getting ready.
So what are we doing? Dumping the shit tank.
The legal way?
You don't need to say legal or illegal or nothing. Since Billy's truck's almost completely empty on fuel, Kenny and I decided to take it down to the Flying J, top the fuel tanks off, and dump both wastewater tanks underneath the race car trailer. I literally despise going to Flying J. The pumps always give problems. They either won't read my card or the keypad won't accept the answers to its questions. After I fought the pump for about 5 minutes just to get it turned on, I had another problem. If you pull the nozzle wide open, the pump will only run for about 3 seconds before it shuts itself off. Since the tank in the truck was almost completely empty, it felt like it was taking forever, given how slowly I had to pump the fuel in.
I have to go inside to get my receipt.
I decided if I was going to have to walk in there to get my receipt, I was making only one trip. but after I learned they couldn't lock me out of the dumping station, my decision was to make exactly 0 trips inside, and they could just keep my receipt. Now, generally, I wouldn't include this in the video. However, since my wife is a pushover, and she can't say no to anybody that needs to use our restroom, I figured I would include this in the video to explain why I don't want anybody pooping in my trailer.
I'll bet that if my wife was the one that had to come down here and dump this shit tank, she'd quit inviting everybody to come shit in my trailer. That's what she does. Everybody gets a free invitation to shit in my trailer, and this is what I get stuck with.
To add insult to injury, Kenny's talked Vicky into keeping this stupid hose in my generator compartment, of all places.
Are you happy, Kenny?
I don't know about happy. Disgusted?
Remember why I told you I didn't want this in my generator compartment?
That's where Vicky made me put it.
You see why I don't listen to Vicky? You now see why you shouldn't listen to Vicky. This was your deal. You went and got the hose and you talked it all up to Vicky. This is the way to go.
This was her deal.
You fed her this line of bullshit, and I have to deal with it.
It made it easier though, didn't it?
No. All right, everybody, welcome back to the shop. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to Milan, Michigan tomorrow. We're leaving in the morning to go to the Detroit Hood TV Pour Your Own Puddle race. Both the boys will be entered in small tire, and I believe Allison's taking her Dart to run it for the first time after she's installed the new Isky camshaft. They put a solid lifter camshaft in it, took the hydraulic out, which I think it wiped that cam. Luckily, it didn't hurt the rest of the engine, but they've put a new solid lifter Isky camshaft in the Dart, and she's going to spray that thing for the first time at a Pour Your Own Puddle race anyway. They made some passes on it last year with the hydraulic cam. This will be the first time they've sprayed it with the solid, and everything tuned up pretty good. So we'll see how that goes. Pretty excited about that. We've also made a little bit of progress on the 55's engine today off camera. Unfortunately, I think that the push rods are just a little bit too long. I think I need about 100 or 150 thousandths shorter push rod to get the rocker arm geometry set up where I want it. So I'll dig into that next week. We've got a lot going on next week. Obviously, the Malibu's not back together yet. Bob had some things come up this week he needed to attend to. So we're hoping to get back on the Malibu's engine Monday or Tuesday of next week. I've also got somebody lined up. They want to look at my Nova to possibly do the body work and paint this thing. I hope. We'll see. It's a really nice shop not far from here. I ran across these people the other day online, and I stopped and visited with them the other day, and I told them I'd bring the car up and let them take a look at it. I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off here for tonight and get this video uploaded and finish getting it edited. And we'll see you all probably tomorrow evening, if you're headed up that way, to Milan, Michigan, Milan Dragway. Pour Your Own Puddle race put on by Detroit Hood TV. See y'all tomorrow.